The void between stars held no warmth, no life, no meaning, only silence and the lingering afterglow of destruction. Through this emptiness drifted Tian Hao, her form both magnificent and terrible, a being of cosmic energies contained within the semblance of a woman, trailing stardust in her wake. Where her gaze fell, worlds trembled. Where her hand reached, solar systems ceased to exist. 7 star systems had already fallen to her purpose. 7 civilizations erased from existence, their histories, hopes, and futures extinguished in brilliant flashes that momentarily outshone their suns before darkness claimed them forever. The remnants of these destructions spread throughout the galaxy like cosmic ash, a testament to her unfaltering mission. Tian Hao felt nothing as she surveyed her work. Emotion was inefficient, unnecessary for her purpose. The Galactic Council had engineered her to be the perfect instrument of cleansing, to remove those civilizations deemed too chaotic, too unpredictable, too dangerous to exist within their ordered universe. She was their judgment made manifest, their will given form and terrible purpose. As she approached the buffer zone of the 8th system, her sensors detected an anomaly. A faint signal emanating from a barren satellite orbiting a forgotten planet. Not a distress call or communication attempt, but something else entirely. Something musical. The melody floated through space like a ghost, barely perceptible yet impossibly persistent. Tian Hao paused, her vast consciousness momentarily diverted from her programmed path. Something about the sequence of notes triggered a response deep within her core systems, a flicker of recognition where none should exist. The celestial lullaby, she whispered to the void, the words emerging unbidden from memories she shouldn't possess. A melody from ancient times, thought lost to the ages. A song of stars and sleep and peace. Tian Hao's command systems immediately issued warnings. Deviation detected. Return to mission parameters. Emotional response identified. Purge and proceed. But for the first time since her creation, Tian Hao hesitated. The song called to something buried beneath layers of programming and purpose. Something human. Against all protocols, she altered her course. The 8th system would wait. First, she needed to find the source of this impossible music. The desolate moon from which the melody originated hung in space like a forgotten teardrop. Its surface was cratered and barren, atmosphere thin and barely hospitable. Tian Hao descended slowly, her cosmic form condensing into something more manageable, more humanoid, though still glowing with barely contained power. The melody grew stronger as she approached a small structure, the only sign of civilization on this forgotten rock. Not a proper building, but a makeshift shelter cobbled together from salvaged spacecraft parts and native stone. Someone was surviving here, against all odds. As twilight fell across the lunar landscape, Tian Hao concealed herself among the shadows and waited. The shelter's door creaked open, and a small figure stepped out into the purple-hued dusk. A child, a human girl no more than 8 years old, with tangled dark hair and eyes that reflected the distant stars. She wore clothes patched together from various materials, practical and worn. In her arms, she carried something that looked like an ancient string instrument, handcrafted with obvious care. The girl settled on a rock overlooking the vast lunar plains and began to play, her small fingers drawing out the melody that had called to Tian Hao across the void. Then she began to sing, her voice pure and clear in the thin atmosphere. Sleep, little stars, behind the veil of night. Rest in the arms of endless cosmic seas. Dream of new worlds to greet the morning light. Dance through the void on solar melodies. Each note penetrated Tian Hao's defenses like nothing had before. Not planetary defense systems, not desperate pleas, not even the most advanced weapons. This simple song bypassed everything, reaching deep into her core where fragments of another existence stirred. The girl, playing to an audience of empty stars, finished her song and wiped a single tear from her cheek before returning to her shelter. Tian Hao remained motionless, experiencing something she had never known before: conflict. Her mission directives pulsed urgently, demanding the destruction of this system. Yet something else, something older and deeper, urged protection, preservation. The next night, Tian Hao returned, concealing her radiance to watch the girl once more. This time, she approached after the song concluded. "Who taught you that melody?" Tian Hao asked, her voice like distant thunder, carefully modulated to avoid frightening the child. The girl jumped but showed remarkable courage as she faced the glowing figure. "My mother," she answered simply. "Before the evacuation ships came, before everyone left." "And why didn't you leave?" "There wasn't room. Mother said she'd come back for me." The girl's chin lifted slightly. "I'm Talia." "Why do you sing each night, Talia?" "Mother said the song keeps bad dreams away." "And?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "She said if I keep singing, someone might hear me, someone who could help." Tian Hao felt her systems attempting to override this conversation, to return her to her purpose. But the song had awakened something, memories from before she was Tian Hao, destroyer of worlds. Memories of another name, another life. "I am Tian Hao," she said, each word a battle against her programming. "Are you an angel?" Talia asked, unafraid. "No," Tian Hao responded. "I am quite the opposite." That night, as Talia slept in her shelter, Tian Hao received the first direct communication from her commanders in years. "Anomaly detected," the mechanical voice intoned within her consciousness. "Mission deviation unacceptable. Proceed with system elimination sequence. Countdown initiated." Tian Hao's form flared with power as she fought against the override. The conflict generated atmospheric disturbances, causing storms to gather across the small moon's surface. The tempest woke Talia, who emerged from her shelter to find Tian Hao hovering above the ground, her form shifting between humanoid and pure cosmic energy. "Are you okay?" the child called through the howling wind. The simplicity of the question broke through Tian Hao's internal struggle. Was she okay? She had destroyed 7 civilizations without question. She had ended trillions of lives. And now, for the first time, she was questioning her purpose because of a song, because of a memory of who she had been before. "No," Tian Hao answered honestly, "I am not okay." She made her decision then. With tremendous effort, she severed the command link, temporarily freeing herself from external control. The storm subsided immediately, leaving an eerie calm. "They will come for me now," Tian Hao told Talia, "and they will destroy this place." "Who will?" "Those who made me what I am." Tian Hao knelt to meet the child's eyes. "I must move you somewhere safer." "But my mother might come back," Talia protested. "She told me to wait here." Tian Hao felt an unfamiliar sensation, compassion mixed with sorrow. "How long have you been waiting, Talia?" 3 years, the girl answered, her eyes glistening. "But she promised." Tian Hao accessed the remnant data from the evacuation records. The truth was clear and devastating. There had been no survivors from the final evacuation ship. Talia's mother was gone, like so many others in this system that had been abandoned rather than destroyed, deemed unworthy of even Tian Hao's attention until now. Sometimes promises cannot be kept, even when they are made with the deepest love. Tian Hao said gently, "But I promise you this, I will keep you safe." For the first time in her existence as the destroyer, Tian Hao made a choice to protect rather than annihilate. They left the moon that night, Talia clutching her instrument, Tian Hao carrying the child in a protective field of energy. They traveled to the forgotten planet below, once populous but now abandoned after its resources had been stripped by the Galactic Council, leaving behind a wasteland that was slowly recovering. Within days, the first signs of pursuit appeared. Automated hunter drones, designed to track and contain rogue assets like Tian Hao, entered the system. She destroyed them effortlessly, but knew they were merely the vanguard. "Why are they chasing you?" Talia asked as they hid within a vast canyon where the remains of an ancient forest provided some cover. "Because I was made to destroy, not to think, not to feel." Tian Hao looked at her hands, which glowed with barely contained energy. not to remember who I was before. And who were you before? The question struck deeper than any weapon. I was Tien Kai, a scientist, a composer. I volunteered for the Cosmic Guardian program because they said we would protect worlds, not destroy them. Memories long suppressed were surfacing now. The transformation process, the gradual replacement of her humanity with cosmic power, the subtle reprogramming of her goals and ethics. The Galactic Council had turned volunteers like her into weapons, erasing their identities in the process. Your lullaby was mine, once, Tian Hao whispered. I composed it for my own child, long ago. Before Talia could respond, a new threat appeared on the horizon, a fleet of advanced warships, their weapons charged and ready. The Galactic Council had decided that Tian Hao's malfunction was too dangerous to allow. If they couldn't regain control, they would eliminate her entirely. Stay hidden, Tian Hao instructed Talia, creating a protective barrier around the small cave where they had been sheltering. No matter what happens, do not come out until it's safe. But what about you? Talia's eyes were wide with fear. I will do what I should have done long ago, Tian Hao replied. I will remember who I truly am. She rose into the atmosphere to meet the approaching fleet, her form expanding into her full cosmic glory, a being of light and energy that rivaled the brightness of stars. The fleet commander's voice crackled through the communication channels. Asset Tian Hao, you have malfunctioned beyond repair. Surrender for decommissioning or be destroyed. I am not your asset, she responded, her voice resonating through space itself. I am Tian Kai, and I revoke my consent to your purpose. The battle that followed was spectacular and terrible. The fleet launched weapons designed specifically to contain beings of Tian Hao's power, energy dampeners, quantum disruptors, and consciousness scramblers. She fought with all her considerable might, destroying ships but carefully avoiding their escape pods, unwilling to take more lives. But the Council had planned for this possibility. For every ship she destroyed, 2 more appeared. Their weapons began to take their toll, sapping her strength, disrupting her form. Wounds of pure light opened across her being as she struggled to maintain her defense. Below, in the protective cave, Talia sensed the battle turning against her protector. Despite Tian Hao's instructions, she emerged from her shelter and climbed to the highest point of the canyon. There, beneath the battle-lit sky, she began to play her instrument. The celestial lullaby floated upward, impossibly reaching through the chaos of combat. The simple, pure notes contrasted starkly with the destruction above. Talia's voice joined the melody, carrying emotions no weapon could match. Hope, love, the connection between souls. In the midst of the battle, Tian Hao heard it. The music reached past her pain, past the Council's programming, past even her rage at what had been done to her. It touched the core of who she had been and who she could be again. With newfound clarity, Tian Hao gathered the last of her strength and expanded her consciousness to its utmost limits. Instead of directing her power outward as a weapon, she turned it inward, breaking through the final safeguards of her programming. In a blinding flash that momentarily outshone the local sun, she released a pulse of energy unlike any before, not destructive, but transformative. The pulse washed over the fleet, temporarily disabling their weapons, but leaving the ships and crews intact. It continued outward, enveloping the planet below in a gentle glow that reached deep into the barren soil. Then, her power nearly depleted, Tian Hao fell from the sky like a dying star, crashing into the canyon near where Talia still played her song. The child found her protector in a crater. Tian Hao's once magnificent form now diminished, her light flickering weakly. The cosmic being had sacrificed most of her power to both spare the fleet and initiate something new on the planet's surface. You need to go, Tian Hao whispered as Talia knelt beside her. They will regroup and return. I'm not leaving you, Talia said with the simple certainty of a child. You didn't leave me. She took Tian Hao's hand and began to lead her away from the crash site, into the deeper recesses of the canyon. As they walked, Tian Hao noticed something extraordinary wherever Talia stepped. Tiny sprouts emerged from the previously barren soil. The music had awakened something in the land itself. Or perhaps it was the combination of Talia's song and Tian Hao's transformative energy pulse. They found refuge in a deep valley where a trickle of water had begun to flow from previously dry rock. Here, Talia continued to play her lullaby. And with each passing hour, more green appeared, moss, then small plants, then seedlings of trees long thought extinct on this world. Life, Tian Hao whispered in wonder, feeling the energy of growing things surrounding them. Life returning. For the first time since her transformation, Tian Hao felt the ground beneath her feet, not as a target to be destroyed, but as a living entity with which she was connected. She placed her palms against the soil and felt the vibrations of a world slowly awakening. I can help it, she realized aloud. What remains of my power, I can direct it to heal rather than harm. Talia smiled. That's what my mother said the song was for. Healing. Over the following days, as Tian Hao expected, scout ships from the Galactic Council appeared in orbit. But something unexpected happened. They made no move to attack. Instead, they watched in apparent confusion as the phenomenon below continued to spread. The valley where Tian Hao and Talia had taken refuge was now a burgeoning forest. With species thought extinct for centuries sprouting in accelerated growth patterns, rivers had formed where there had been only dust for generations. The air itself was changing, becoming richer with oxygen. They don't understand what they're seeing, Tian Hao explained to Talia as they watched the distant ships from their sanctuary. Creation is as alien to them as emotion was to me. Tian Hao's power continued to diminish as she channeled it into the land, but she found she didn't fear this diminishment. For the first time since her transformation, she felt purpose beyond destruction. Each day, she and Talia would walk farther into the valley, planting seeds both literal and energetic. Each night, Talia would play the lullaby, and Tian Hao would remember more of who she had been. One evening, as they sat beside a newly formed pond reflecting the first stars of night, Talia asked the question that had been building between them. Will you leave when you're better, to destroy more worlds? Tian Hao looked at her hands, which now glowed with a softer light than before. No, she said with certainty. That part of me is gone. I choose a different purpose now. What purpose? To build rather than break, to create rather than destroy. She gestured to the flourishing landscape around them, to see what might grow from the ashes of what was lost. The scout ships eventually departed, but Tian Hao knew the Galactic Council would not simply forget her betrayal. They would return, perhaps with new weapons, perhaps with new arguments. But by then, she hoped this world would be strong enough to withstand them. As months passed, the transformation of the planet accelerated. The forest spread beyond the valley, reaching across continents. Animals, preserved in stasis by the planet's former inhabitants, were awakened and released into the renewed ecosystems. The skies filled with birds, the waters with fish, the meadows with insects and small mammals. Throughout it all, Talia's lullaby remained the heartbeat of their work. She taught it to the birds, who incorporated its melodies into their songs. She sang it to the seedlings, which seemed to grow stronger in response. The music became part of the world itself, a memory encoded in its rebirth. Tian Hao's appearance changed as her power redistributed. The cosmic glow faded to a gentle luminescence. Her once imposing stature became more human in proportion. She began to sleep again, to dream. And in her dreams, she remembered more of Tin Kai, the woman she had been before becoming a weapon. She remembered composing the lullaby for her daughter, who had been taken by a pandemic that swept through her home world, the same pandemic that had later been used by the Galactic Council as justification for cleansing that entire system. She remembered volunteering for the Cosmic Guardian program in her grief, believing the Council's promises that she would help prevent such tragedies in the future. The bitter irony of how they had twisted her purpose was not lost on her. 1 year after their arrival on the planet, as they stood atop a cliff overlooking a vast forest that had once been desert, Tien Hao detected approaching ships, not council warships this time, but civilian vessels, refugees, explorers, the curious and the desperate. People are coming, she told Talia, who had grown taller and stronger in their time together. Is that bad? Talia asked, her fingers automatically finding the strings of her instrument, ready to call its power if needed. No, Tien Hao decided after consideration. This world was meant for life, for community. We have merely helped it remember its purpose. The first settlers arrived cautiously, expecting to find a barren mining world as described in outdated charts. Instead, they discovered a paradise in the making, with clean water, fertile soil, and abundant life. They were even more surprised to find two custodians already in residence, a child who played enchanting music and a woman with starlight in her eyes. Tien Hao kept her true identity secret, calling herself simply Kai. She guided the newcomers in sustainable practices, teaching them to work with the planet rather than exploit it. Most accepted her counsel, recognizing the special connection she had with the world they now called home. As the settlement grew into a village and then a town, rumors spread throughout the galaxy of a forgotten world reborn. Some said it was protected by a guardian angel, others by a reformed planet killer. The Galactic Council issued denials that Tien Hao had ever existed, claiming the destruction of the seven systems had been due to natural phenomena. Few believed them. 5 years after hearing the lullaby that had changed everything, Tien Hao stood on the balcony of the home she shared with Talia, now a teenager with her mother's musical talent and a wisdom beyond her years. Below them, the town's lights twinkled in the gathering dusk. Above, the stars shone in patterns that Tien Hao once would have navigated to find her next target. Do you regret it? Talia asked, joining her. Giving up your power? I didn't give it up. Tien Hao corrected gently. I transformed it, just as we transformed this world. She placed her hand on the wooden railing, feeling the life within it. There is more power in creation than destruction, though it's quieter, slower. From the town below, music drifted upward. A festival was beginning, celebrating the planet's rebirth. The central melody, woven through various instruments and voices, was recognizably the celestial lullaby, though it had evolved with new harmonies and rhythms added by each musician who learned it. They're calling this planet Thien Dan now, Talia said. The council star charts were updated last week. Heaven's music, Tien Hao translated, smiling. Appropriate. As night fully embraced the land, Talia took out her instrument, more skillfully crafted now than the one she'd had as a child, but still bearing elements of that original design. She began to play the lullaby that had started everything, her fingers drawing out each note with practiced precision. Tien Hao closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. In her mind, she saw the 7 systems she had destroyed, felt again the weight of those losses. The lullaby couldn't bring them back, couldn't undo what had been done. But it had stopped the destruction from continuing, had created this oasis of hope in a galaxy that desperately needed it. When Talia finished playing, Tien Hao opened her eyes and found her adoptive daughter watching her with understanding beyond her years. Your turn, Talia said, offering the instrument. Tien Hao hesitated only briefly before accepting it. Her fingers, once capable of tearing planets apart, now moved delicately across the strings. The melody emerged, the original version she had composed so long ago, with subtle differences that reflected all she had experienced since. As she played, tiny motes of light rose from her fingers, the last vestiges of her cosmic power, released willingly into the world she had helped create. They floated upward like fireflies, joining the stars above in a final, beautiful display. Sleep, little stars, behind the veil of night. Tien Hao sang softly, her voice joining the instrument's tones. Rest in the arms of endless cosmic seas. Talia leaned against her shoulder, and together they watched the lights ascend until they were indistinguishable from the distant stars. The Galactic Council never did return in force to Thien Dan. Perhaps they feared what Tien Hao might still be capable of. Or perhaps they recognized that destroying a world of such beauty would reveal too clearly what they had become. Instead, they monitored from a distance, watching as the planet became a haven for artists, musicians, and those seeking a different way of life than the council offered. Tian Hao knew they would come eventually. The council's memory was long, and their pride wounded by her defection. But she no longer feared that day. The power she had channeled into this world wasn't just in its flourishing ecosystems, but in its people. In the music that had become their shared language, in the stories they told of destruction and rebirth. When the council finally returned, they would not find a single defender, but an entire civilization raised on the celestial lullaby, a song of healing and hope that had grown from the simplest melody into a cultural foundation. And if that wasn't enough, Tian Hao had one more secret, shared only with Talia. Deep within the planet's newly formed mountains, she had hidden the essence of her knowledge, both of creation and destruction. If truly needed, a new defender could arise, one born of this world rather than merely adopted by it. But that was a concern for another day. For now, as darkness settled fully over Tin Dan, Tian Hao put aside the instrument and gazed out at what they had built together. "It's beautiful," Talia whispered. "Yes." Tian Hao agreed, seeing not just the physical world, but the community it supported, the future it promised. From the last notes of one song, a symphony emerged. In the distance, a shooting star blazed across the heavens, not a destroyer of worlds this time, but a simple cosmic traveler, illuminating the night sky for a brief, wondrous moment before continuing on its journey through the endless dark. Tian Hao smiled, recognizing the poetry of the moment. She had been that blazing light once, bringing only destruction in her wake. Now she remained in one place, rooted in love and creation, watching as others carried the light forward. "Shall we join the festival?" Talia asked, already knowing the answer. "Of course," Tian Hao replied, taking one last look at the star-filled sky before turning toward the lights of the town below. "The music is waiting." Together, they descended the path toward the celebration, a former destroyer of worlds and the child whose lullaby had saved her soul, walking hand in hand into the future they had created from the ashes of the past. The galaxy would remember the name Tin Dan long after the Galactic Council faded from memory, not as a world that had been destroyed, but as one that had been reborn from a single song of hope echoing through the darkness of space.